Ellie, well, welcome to the Bracken Outdoors podcast.
Hi, Bracken. Thanks for having me.
Yes, it's fantastic to have you on here. We're interested in talking a lot about your unique approach to coaching and supporting small businesses and everything else. So, kind of as a start, it sounds like you have a bit of a corporate background. How do you get into this unique approach to doing everything? What's your background and where did you come from in this space?
Like most people, it's not a linear journey. It would make it really easy if I could just pinpoint the milestones along the way, but it's very messy and intuitive. So I worked for British Airways for 10 years and I worked for Barclays for 10 years, both in leadership roles, leading and developing teams. And I used to love it. Used to really enjoy that until I got to a point where I didn't. And it was just, I felt like I couldn't work for my people the way that I wanted to. I was being quite constrained by the environment that I was in. So it's I well, to be honest, I burnt myself out and I was quite poorly for about 5 months. And in that time, that also coincided with COVID. I went off sick, being poorly about a month before COVID hit. And I have three children who were like 5 years younger at the time. So I think they were like what, 4, 8, and 9 during COVID. So I didn't get a lot of time and space that I needed to recover. And I found solace outdoors. It just felt calmer. There was nothing demanding of me when I was outside. So I thought, actually, maybe I can take all of the knowledge and the skills and my passions for developing people and coaching them and do it outside of the corporate world. So I get to do it more on my own terms and be really intuitive and help people in a way that I know that they need, but do that in the outdoor space as well, because I'm a much better person in that space. So if I am, then it stands to reason that possibly my clients would be, um, but also I'm a better coach that way. So that's like a whistle stop um, journey of
Yeah,
how I got here.
I'm curious whether kind of COVID was your first kind of big exposure to the outdoors, or whether you had more of a background kind of in your free time or growing up or
No, I didn't. So I was on I don't know if you've heard of the Coaching Outdoors podcast, and this is a question they always ask at the beginning, and that's what's your earliest memory of being in nature? And I was dreading that question because people know me now as being an outdoor coach, and I feel like such an imposter because I never was. I was never that child that went outside and got dirty, and I didn't really get into nature until maybe about 8 years ago. Um, for a number of reasons. One of the pivotal moments I can remember is from my husband's, before he turned 40, he wanted to have done, he had like a bit of a bucket list, and one of them was that he wanted to climb Snowdon. And I've always been active. I've always been quite yeah, healthy and active, but not necessarily outdoors naturey. So we climbed Snowdon and I didn't even own a pair of walking boots or any suitable clothes. I had gym trainers and gym outfits. So that was my first exposure, properly being intentional to it. And I loved it. I really, really enjoyed so much about it. Um, Coinciding with that, we realized that I've got three children and my middle one is so much better outdoors. So much better, so much easier to communicate with. He responds so much better when he's got space and freedom. So as a family, we started to do more outdoors in order to make family life a little bit easier. And we started going camping, which I'd never been camping before. So all of that sort of happened at the same sort of time. And I sort of realized that this outdoor space that I used as just an inconvenience to get from A to B, if I'm being really cynical about it, actually became my happy place. And I love it. And I think I bring a lot of that honeymoon period into the work that I do outdoors because I'm still really excited by it because it all feels new and shiny to me.
yeah, and I mean that's not an unusual path by any means. Like I said, we come around to things in interesting different ways, and and in that way we're also bringing in strengths because you've got I'd say more of a business skill set than the average person who works outdoors,
Mhm.
and and that's a really valuable perspective to have as well. And
Mhm.
it's not necessarily all the number of hours you've spent on bushcraft courses or paddling down a river. It's there's other things that we can value within a space and other experiences. And I'd say that in a way probably sets you up better to connect with people who then may be a bit more skeptical about what the outdoors can offer.
Yeah, it's that's interesting that you should say that because I think that's what I'm starting to realize that that's where my space is, and actually my experience working in the corporate world, my space was always helping to nurture people into the environment. It was always people who are new to the business, always the working really closely with the training teams, with learning and development. I was always getting people to feel comfortable in that space. And what I'm starting to realize that is that that's where my little space is in the outdoor coaching world and nature-based coaching. I I help people who want to get into that space and don't necessarily know where to start or what to do. Um, I pride myself on being able to help people who don't need to do any training. They don't need to buy any specialist equipment. I just help them to integrate nature into their day-to-day lives without it being too much of an upheaval. Um, so yeah, that's definitely the space that I'm in because there's some amazing people that do fantastic things that are much more immersive and much more connected to nature, which I don't profess to be any sort of authority on. So I help people get into the space and then I can also help facilitate them to move on if their knowledge and their passion deepens.
So there's a nature connection component, but there's also kind of a very I mean this is something that I was talking a lot with you and with Karen that was
Mm,
with us. Because that's actually how we met for the listeners. That's was at the nature therapy conference,
was, yeah.
and I went, oh, this workshop sounds interesting. I have a free slot. It was net walking. I'm like,
Yeah.
this could be interesting. I mean, actually, to be perfectly honest, I thought it could go one of two ways,
Mm.
and it could be. I mean, everyone's kind of come across something that professes to be for networking, and it is just absolutely cringeworthy. Really, you kind of just want to crawl into a corner and disappear. But actually, I got a lot out of it. I saw this as a great way to connect with other people,
Mm.
and I think it'd be really great if you could talk a bit more about kind of how the components came together for this, and how
Yeah.
the idea of networking and emerged.
Um, Again, not straightforward. There's a few different parts to it. Ultimately, so I lived in South Manchester in fairly in the suburbs and moved into sort of the rural Cheshire countryside, getting on for 4 years ago now. And when I moved, it was a time when I was starting to bring nature more into my business. And I was struggling to find my people or a networking event that I felt most comfortable in. Um, I don't love networking. It's a skill that I've learnt and I can do it, but it takes a lot out of me, especially if we're sedentary. We're in a room with fluorescent lighting, very minimal natural lights, not much movement, coffee and pastries, lots of small talk, sometimes big egos, and not actually getting to know the person that you're speaking to past their elevator pitch. That's my cynical uh, explanation of how I experience networking events. And I went to a networking event that was just people going out and walking and chatting. And I thought, I like this. This feels like more like my people. And we came together through a shared connection. There was a shared value there already, which made it easier to open up with a conversation. And so I thought, actually, I'd love to be able to do this. And I couldn't get to those events on a regular basis because I had commitments when they ran. So I thought, well, I'd love to be able to do this, run these myself and bring people to me. And then I had a really busy schedule. So I thought, basically, I'll create something that I need and hope that people come along. So it's evolved, but it's basically creating a space. The idea is that people, all they have to do is book on and show up. I tell them where to be, what to expect, how the day is going to unfold or how the couple of hours are going to unfold. There are people like me who struggle with small talk and can struggle to open up a conversation. So I create coaching cards based on the local environment so that it opens up a conversation. It taps a little bit more into your intuition and more into your emotional responses rather than relying just on logical, lateral thinking. It helps you to connect a little bit with the local environment because I partner with Cheshire Wildlife Trust and they inform me of the wildlife local to the areas that we walk in. And so an example would be there'd be a coaching prompt on a card that's got a picture of an oak tree on, and the oak tree is known for being resilient, and the questions on the back would be around resilience. And so it eases you into a conversation that you wouldn't necessarily have had. Um, and it's evolved from there, and it's a unique space that does combine business owners getting together to try and prevent loneliness because it can be quite isolating and loneliness, and you miss a sense of belonging when you work on your own. Um, you're connecting with yourself through the coaching questions, and responses come up that you wouldn't necessarily have thought had you not been asked those questions. Um, and then you're connecting to nature. So those are the three prongs that I kind of hang the networking elements on. Um, and yeah, it's basically a space that I wish was there and I could go along to. And because of the sort of person that I am, if it's not there, I build it and I create it myself. So
Yeah.
that's how it sort of started to evolve.
No, that's well, I mean that's where a lot of people are driven. It's something that they really miss. There's a hole, and you go, actually, you know what? I might be the right person to sit in this niche, and
Mm.
if it isn't out there already, build it.
Yeah.
But just to roll back onto those coaching cards, I really like that idea. That's something that early book. I mean, it got straight past the bane of networking, which is, oh, what do you do? And there starts at this really shallow level, and it's almost most networking, and this is why people hate it, I think, is most networking and the way most people think about networking is I need to go somewhere so I can figure out who can give me what I need. It's immediately transactional. But the coaching cards take it to a different depth, a different level. You immediately connecting with someone as a person, and you immediately start looking at the other person and going, how can I help them? And it just flips the script and goes for depth.
Yeah. 100%. The connections that people make at the networking events that I run are go beyond any other sort of connection that you'd make at a different networking event. It's longer, so it's a slower burn if people are looking for that transactional sort of nature, which we're all in business who come along. So we do need business. We do need to sell things, but there's actually a connection. You're connecting with the person over and above the business. So the number of people that come along that I've met at networking events for months and months, and I know more about them. I feel much more like I want to help them after one networking event than I have done in the previous 8 months that I've known them because they open up. And there's much, for the majority of people, I am aware it doesn't work for everybody. Um, but walking side by side, the space, the um, the silence that's more welcome allows for a much more thoughtful response rather than a well-practiced patter that people tend to give.
Yeah, there's something that I've known for a long while is those conversations that you have while walking are so much better than sitting down. And that's why whenever I go, hey, I'd like to meet up with someone for a business meeting, whatever, I go, okay, let's make it a walk.
Yeah.
Might take a twig stove or a thermos and have a coffee stop at some point. But the walking is so much more productive. I've done walking interviews. And then crucially as well is when I want to connect to my wife, it's or have those in-depth conversations. It's inevitably when we're walking, when you can just let your gaze kind of stray across the landscape.
Mhm.
You're not as focused on your own reactions to what is being said because there's in some conversations that fail to get the depth, it's because you're over analyzing what you are going to say and what is going to move next. But almost that physical movement takes you into a different space.
Yeah. And you don't have to overanalyze, or this is me that I'm speaking about, the facial responses of the person that you're talking to because you can't see them. And for me personally, I'm quite intuitive and I'm quite bodily, I suppose. So the movement and the be able to feel into my response and give a really measured response rather than a quick reaction because I'm concerned that the person's waiting for what I've got to say. It all makes such a big difference to the space and the depth of conversation and the connections and the way that people have opened up. Um, and I love, I actually love the fact that there's more men that come along now than they used to. I'm in my third year now, um, and we get men on most of the events, which at the beginning we didn't because people thought it was for women only. But men don't seem to have the space in the way that women do, especially in the business world, to be able to come along somewhere and open up just as themselves, to let down any guards and pretense and say, actually, it's really hard at the minute. I'm really struggling. And it is coaching, it's not mental health support, but just being able to have a space where you can open up and then other people say the same thing. Yes, me too. And you instantly don't feel quite as alone and you feel quite safe in that environment. And I work really hard to create an environment that allows people to show up that way right from the outset. That's incredibly important to me.
Yeah, that was another thing that struck me really well. At first, it's the use of nature and what I've heard described in the therapeutic wilderness space as the wilderness mirror, where you
Mm,
use the metaphors of natural objects and plants and creatures to kind of take you out of that space where you're worried about yourself. It's kind of like if, using your example of the oak tree, if I'm thinking of myself as the oak tree, I'm no longer thinking of myself as the anxious person that is trying not to say something wrong.
mhm.
It's instead answering the question, just really hitting a depth with it. And that is incredibly valuable. And as you say, incredibly valuable way for to get people to open up where normally there would be a lot of barriers in place.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing with the questions as well. It does allow people to jump in a little bit like you alluded to before, just to walk side by side. And for me to ask a question like that to somebody, it it can feel like they need some additional permission to go that deep that quickly. Um, but the cards, they bring a lightness and they bring a permission because I could give everybody the same card. I don't. There's usually about 12 different cards that people um, just pick randomly. Um, but if everybody had the same card, everybody would come up with something different because it's almost like there's something on the surface that they're waiting to be able to spill out and they're waiting for that permission. Subconsciously, it's not a conscious thing, um, but it means something
Yeah.
different to everybody because it just brings to the surface whatever's bubbling anyway.
And the questions you put are rather open-ended. They're not something that ends up being answered with a yes or no. And they're broad in their interpretation as well, which I think is incredibly valuable because it's, as you say, people already have something that they're struggling with. And then when they see a question and that can be interpreted in that way, the immediate click that goes on in the mind is like, oh, that's talking about me. That's hitting right what I want and needed to talk about.
Yeah.
And it's almost like that validation from luck. And this is something that I actually got inspired by you guys in the workshop you did was I've been doing a therapeutic session with teenage boys in a high school, and I wanted to them to talk about themselves a little bit and about their own qualities and struggles. So I just got a deck of animal cards and like laid out 12 of them, like which one calls to you, which one really interests you, and they could pick one and they could take it and then they could and then the things that came out, what they drew out of just looking at this animal in the picture going, what do you see in yourself in there, or what don't you see?
Mm.
And it just brought out this whole conversation that I wouldn't have expected because the prompt was there. and that movement forward was was gradual, and it's almost I'm seeing a bit more value of ritual and ceremony and a little bit of, oh, I don't know what I call it, spiritualism in a bit, that there's a luck of the draw and it's like, oh, this is meant to be.
Mm.
Just it works. It works. However, whatever is happening in the pathways, it works.
Yeah, it does. And I think that's possibly because we don't get asked those questions in day-to-day life. How often do we get the space and the invitation to just open up in a way that feels safe and like somebody genuinely cares and they've not asked the question and they're then distracted by something else? I say to a few people, I find it actually incredibly sad that my work exists. It's a really sad state of affairs that people have to book onto an event to come along for somebody to really listen to them, to get to walk out in nature. It should be something that is readily available to everybody. And generations ago it was, but we are so distracted by there's so many demands on our time and the fact that we've created a life societally that is comfort driven. It makes it really hard to break those comfort habits, to step out, to connect with people in person, to disconnect from technology, to move your body when actually you could just instantly sit down and put some streaming thing on and just be cozy. But it's all adding to a state of mental unrest for a lot of people. Um, so I think that that's why things like the cards and things work really well because we don't have the permission in the same way. We can't just go up to our friend and start talking about this thing that's going on in our head without them getting involved and making it a conversation rather than creating the space to really be listened to for an hour, for however long it takes. And I think that's the difference as well when I get not pushback, but when people are a little bit cynical and say, well, I already go on a walk. I can go for a walk with a friend, but it's very different. The space that's held is very different.
Yeah, and it it's again, I mean, I would quite happily work myself out of a job in lifetime if everyone was out there engaging with nature, everything. I wasn't needed. Heck, I'll move on to something else. I'll find something else, and that would be a beautiful space to be. But sometimes having that facilitator is necessary for a space to, as you say, hold the space. Holding space is incredibly valuable. Sometimes people that come to my forest school sessions say, you know what? You get us out of the house every week. That's the most important thing. Putting aside all the fire and tools and all the fun stuff we get to do. Actually, that's one of the top three things is just that excuse to get out and connect with others because we need it with the draw of technology and the draw of just staying inside and being, at least for people like me, our introverted selves.
Mhm.
You need something. You need that impetus, that motivation to move forward.
Yeah. And it's yeah, maybe we can all collectively help to make it a little bit more natural for people to do that. Which is why I'm sure your podcast exists and a lot of the work that we do to try and spread that word.
Yeah, that's yeah, it's fantastic work. So I'm thinking that you probably meet a lot of small business owners and people that are kind of trying to make a go of things that in less of a traditional way. I'm curious whether you'd be up for chatting a bit about what kind of things you see and you hear people talk about in this small business space because a lot of forestry leaders are at the very least freelance uh,
Yeah.
or or maybe trying to actually make a bigger business or CIC work.
Mhm.
And what I hear all the time is profound. I mean, one of the biggest issues is profound disconnection with others. It's like we're all in our little silos, little islands, trying to reinvent the wheel,
Mhm.
but there's actually a lot of other people with the same sort of struggles and the same sort of nuances, and that we're trying to achieve the same thing, whether we are um, selling beeswax wraps or forest school sessions, there's
Mm.
a lot of overlap. So I wonder whether you'd be happy to talk a bit more about
Yeah, I
that angle.
think what you talked to there about the types of people you're talking about and the similarity between the type of people that come to my events is they tend to be values-based businesses. People I tend to attract are those who do their job through a passion. They're almost a calling. They love doing what they're doing, and that can make it very difficult for people to charge money for it, to be able to survive in the world where we need money to to pay for our house, to pay for our utilities, all of that. So there's that struggle that people tend to have, that they do this job that they love and would love to do it for free, and myself included. But we also have a lot to offer, and there's a lot of value um, that we have that other people need. So that's a common thread that people tend to have, just recognizing their worth and their value and asking for it because they
It
love what they do.
Yeah, it comes from this almost weird idea that if you like what you do, you shouldn't charge for it.
Yeah.
It's as I say, I mean, we get that massively, particularly in the forest school leader space, where people just believe in making a difference. They go to a forest school day and go, "Wow, look at the kids! This is really This looks really fun." They go on a forest school leadership course and they go, yes, this is what has been missing in my life. I love this. I love the fact that I'm outside. I love the fact that I'm working with children's curiosity and everything else. And then they just take that same energy forward and go, okay, yes, I just want to make a difference. And oh yeah, I might need to charge a bit for it.
Mm.
It's the fifth thing down the line
Yeah.
is almost the reality of it. And the immediate instinct is find out what everyone else is charging and charge the same amount.
Mhm. Yeah. And it's hard. And I think there's the whole when you were saying that, then there's the whole that work should be um yeah, work should be hard as well. It's hard work. We call it hard work. So when the work isn't hard and it feels light, it almost feels, it doesn't quite marry up that you ask for money for it. That's the sort of vibe that a lot of people that come to my events feel. There's another that's around self-doubt and feeling like everybody else is doing it better. That's a big one. And then the third one, I would say, is around time management as a small business owner. That's the main one that most people struggle with. And again, I don't discount myself from that. There's so much to do, always, that the outputs that people see is only the very tip of the arrow of what everything that we have to do. Um, there's all of the ideation of the idea that you're coming across, and then the strategy of it, and then the creating the thing, and then the promotion of it, and the selling of it, and then the doing of the thing, and then there's the reflection, and then there's the chasing the money, whichever order that goes in, and then you start again. So as somebody who's employed, you're generally employed to do one section of all of that, and the team and the business creates the whole. But as a small business owner, you're in all of that. You're having to switch all of the time, which makes that tiring and draining, which then means that you struggle to ask for the money because you need the money, and then you feeling self-doubt that everyone else is doing it better for you, and it's all interconnected, and um, it all feeds each other. And what I hope some of my sessions do is bring a sense of, people talk about loneliness and isolation of running your own business. For me personally, I would say it's a sense of belonging that is missing rather than feeling lonely and isolated. Because similar to you, I'm an introvert, so I don't tend to feel lonely. I quite like space and time on my own. But I do miss feeling like I belong somewhere, that I'm big part of something bigger, that it's not just me doing this thing. So coming along to the networking events, there's other people doing similar work, struggling with the same things. And you think, oh, it's not just me. So it's a sense of belonging as opposed to addressing loneliness.
Yeah, there's always for me it's also finding out that people in the same boat as you. I mean, you could describe some most of the struggles there, around charging money, self-doubt, and oh, I'm struggling with time management at the moment because there's more things that need doing than hours of the day. And but yeah, it's finding out that there's someone who has the same doubts that you have, the same worries, the same concerns. It almost is almost like problem shared is problem halved. Even just hearing that say other business owners are struggling in the same space, or that you know what, actually sometimes homemade families are a little difficult to get to come to
Mm.
sessions, and they will disappear on holidays all of a sudden, and so your income will go up and down. You know, it's not you, it's normal.
Mm.
And then it once that's the kind of, I'd say, level one. Then level two is actively having a group that then challenges some of these internal monologues. So I mean, she have come across them and kind of feeds into that whole I don't know whether I have enough value with what I'm delivering here. I'm curious as how the conversations go when people start bringing up value and the amount charged for it, because sometimes you can have a different level of internal value for something than someone else. And because sometimes someone else is getting something out of it that you don't know. And
Yeah.
you don't know whether that thing would be worth £40 a day to them or whether it's worth five. You are you're just making a judgment on what you think you should be worth.
Yeah. And sometimes that's linked to confidence as well. So those with when the confidence is lower, the charge lower, their fees are lower. And so there tends to be, so when I do the walk, similar to the walk that we did at the nature therapy conference, we'll have pose a question, we will walk in pairs for 20 minutes, and then we'll come and reflect. So it's based on the reflections that people feel that they can share. And what tends to happen is there was one that happened, it's just reminded me the walk that we do at Bickerton Hill. Um, one of the cards is a butterfly, and one of the people who came along said, actually, I've just remembered, because I think the thing was self-doubt, that actually someone said to me that butterfly can never see how beautiful it is because it can never see behind it. It can't see its own wings, so it has to rely on other people to tell it. Um, and she said, and so she took from that that she needs to speak to other people, and that actually her own internal narrative of what was going on wasn't the reality. And so off the back of that, she went and asked for some feedback from people, sent surveys out and got some testimonials. So it's around the sharing, and the metaphor comes in really, really nicely, because yeah, it takes the pressure from being in here to out here. So it's tangible and you can almost touch and feel it. Um, but just that shared space where people can say, yes, me too, I'm feeling like that, tends to calm the fight or flight response that's around. I don't know how much I'm charging, what's my value? That tends to be what happens in the sessions.
Yeah, testimonials and feedback is an amazing way to start challenging that,
Mm.
and something that I've now starting to make a bit more of a habit of is just setting up a competition every once in a while. Just go, okay, just buying in, say, a toasting marshmallow toasting kit, or a small den kit, or this bug hunting bag, or a
Mm.
fire steel and a fireball set, and going, okay, just picking an audience, going, okay, all of the people that have come to X session over the last year, just send out an email to all of them, go, hey, would love to know about your feedback. If you love it, you'd love to send us a testimonial. If you have left and it didn't quite work out for you, we'd love to know why so we can make it better, and go send your feedback in for a chance to win X package. And it really works incredibly well to get those people that might just be quietly loving what you do.
Mm.
And they think what you do is amazing and they come back time and time again. And I mean, that's if you get repeat customers, that's already a sign you're doing something really well. But sometimes getting them to be a bit more vocal because we're not we're not very good at sharing praise usually. We're not good about going, hey, you know what? We really love today's session. We're looking forward to the next one. Very few people like leave the side and say that. So sometimes getting that silent majority to put their words on paper, first of all, it makes them realize what value they're getting from this. And secondly, you get to see, you get that feedback, and 99% of the time it's positive.
Yeah.
It's really a good exercise to do, and I encourage anyone who's wondering what people think. Just run a little exercise. If you're working for schools or whatever, and you have schools as your customers, then maybe offer them a free forest school session for their senior leadership team or something like that. Just something, a little something to tempt people into putting their thoughts on paper.
Yeah. And if you do something like I'm a lover of a Google form, because it collates all of the information nice and in a nice structure so I can see it. Um, but if you tailor some of the questions that you're asking for, so that what is it specifically? Was it X, Y, and Z that you particularly enjoyed? That can help you form what the value is and understand what it is that they're coming to you for, rather than, yeah, it was a great session, loved it, which is lovely for the ego. But actually, what does that mean? How do you help to drive your business if you don't know specifically what it is that people are enjoying? Um, so that's helped me as well. Separate your ego from what the facts of the situation are.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, all of those have definite helpful. Do you have anything on the subject of the time management? You mentioned that's something that comes up quite often, and that's that's I guess more often than not about switching off, being able to know when the work is done, or what would you say the conversations that you usually have around that subject are?
It's tricky because time management is actually one of those things that people struggle with, and it also stops them coming along to my sessions because they don't have the time because they're so busy. It's one of those sort of perpetual concerns that people have. Um, I prefer to think of it as energy management than time management because there's never going to be enough time to do all of the things. But if you can work out where your energy is best placed at any given time, um, so you mentioned before that you're an introvert. As an introvert, I find I have most time in the morning or most energy in the morning. As the day goes on and I see more people, my energy is very low. So my boundary around time management is that I don't generally do any work after 5 p.m. I've got 3 children, so it doesn't always work that way. But it means that because I know that anything that I do after that time feels like a slog and then it drains my energy, so I don't have any energy available the next day. So actually, when do you operate best? What time of the day have you got the most energy? And which tasks require a lot of energy? Which ones are ones that you don't love doing? And when can you match your energy to it? There's times if I've been staring at the laptop all day, I'll make sure that I've got some tasks that I'm laminating my cards that I've written so that or printing them out so I'm not staring at the screen. So it's that I don't tend to love the sort of masculine energy time management systems that are very do delegate, uh, just delay all of those. They don't tend to work for me. Time blocking doesn't work for me. Um, but working with my energy really does. And reflecting what works well, what didn't. And yeah, and what are your non-negotiables like? For me, I don't work after 5 o'clock because my brain is then too busy at night. I can't sleep. It'll take me 2 days to get past it. So those 2 hours of work that I do actually have cost me 2 days because I'm too tired because I've not been able to sleep.
Yeah, that no, that's similar to my own approach to the 5 o'clock. And
Mhm.
energy management is a great way to describe it. And that they kind of flip between certain types of tasks and others. I'm roughly the same. I do my best work first thing in the morning before anyone's up. So
Mm.
I'll get what I call deep work tasks out of the way first, things that require all of my kind of concentration and focus without any distractions. Then I'll go on to kind of medium things that just need to get done. And I'll usually finish off with what I call comms, anything that's going in or out that I need to answer messages, all of that comes later on in the day. Once I've exhausted those stores, because chances are people are going to drag me in directions that I didn't want to go originally. So I need to get the stuff done first and then start answering those emails. And after that, after lunch, I'll try and do some more like you say, laminating stuff or getting or drying off the tops, getting equipment packed, sharpening knives, all of those tasks that I know don't require a lot of thought and effort. And this is also when I fit in more of my socializing, and this is why this interview is slightly more in the afternoon. So I've had lunch and now I'm into more social time once I've got that hard work out originally.
Yeah. And I don't think that there's lots of productivity books and hacks, and I don't think that anyone can tell anyone else how to work productively. It's about reflecting on what works best for you. There's lots of tools and techniques that you can implement, but for me, it depends how much energy I've got that day. So no 2 days will look the same for me energy wise. So therefore, my strategy to being productive isn't isn't the same. I do like the 2 minute rule. So if it takes longer to write it on a to-do list, just do it. You know, if there's certain
Yeah.
things that take less than 2 minutes, I'm working out whether my to-do list is if I've got something on there like at the minute from a personal point of view, I need to look at new energy providers. Now, to put that on my to-do list, there's actually quite a few steps involved in that, so I can't just tick that off. So it's making sure that your to-do list reflects the actual tasks rather than just putting a project on there because it can be really demotivating because you never get to tick it off because there's so many tasks. So is it a task or is it a project? So there's little hacks, if you want to call it like that, but yeah, it depends where my
Yeah,
energy is.
di different people work at different speeds.
Yeah,
I need to be highly organized, and I need a way to collect all of everything that comes out of my mind. Because I'll just have a random thought and be like, okay, I need to do this, and I just need to capture it then.
yeah,
Write on a post-it note, pop pop it on a whiteboard, all of the things that just filter in and then just get added to my to-do list because then it removes the stress of worrying about what I need to do and don't need to do because I just have a list. There's always a list there. So whenever I have energy, I'll tick off more. If I don't have less energy, tick off less. As long as the important stuff gets done, it's perfect.
yeah, exactly. My master to-do list is like that. That's what it is. It's my master to-do list, not my daily one, but it's just the big brain dump.
Yeah. I have to say, you've also kind of inspired me a bit on the being intentional about technology as well, because I love your email autoresponder. That was massively inspiring to kind of send you a message and hear a message back going, you know what? I'm not on call all day, every day, all night. I'm not going to answer this. I'm going to try and get back to you as soon as I can, but you know what? I'm trying to live a good and intentional life here.
Oh, thank you. I'm glad you like that. There's been a few iterations because it's strange. I get some people saying they love it and some people saying, but what if I need you? And my response is, well, maybe I'm not the person for you then, because I don't want to work that way. And somebody said to me, well, 48 hours turnaround is quite a long time. So, yeah, but if I'm in a field somewhere delivering, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing to respond. And that takes it out of me. So I need to have the energy to just recuperate. So if it's 48 hours, it's 48 hours. If it's that
Yeah.
urgent, then maybe I'm not the person for you.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people confuse important with urgent. Like if you are sending me an email on midway through a Friday afternoon going, oh, there's this bid we need to get in for Monday morning. Can you write this for it? You should have told me 2 weeks ago if you
Yeah.
really wanted to get that done. It's other people's failure to time manage, to be honest, that creates that. And you never want to be in firefighting mode all the time because you
No.
just never get your best work done. If everything is driven by whatever email pops into your inbox first, you'll never reach the true potential. And say, I'm out, half my week is spent out in the woodlands. I'm working with children, I'm working with adults, and I'm giving them my time and attention. So that means that I'm not answering emails. I'm not answering even WhatsApps or text messages. I'll sometimes get to the end of the day, it's ready after sessions and go, you know what? Actually, I can't answer anything today
Yeah.
because mm, those people deserve my focus. They're paying to be there.
Mm.
I'm there to help them. If I'm constantly distracted, I'm not giving them my best self.
Yeah. And it's the same with answering the responses as well. I also think that at the end of the day, as in at the end of each day, I struggle to have the energy to respond. So I want to be able to respond to people with intention and with the integrity that I want to. And if I'm just firing off a response, that's not the way that I want to be able to communicate with people. It's my little way of creating a ripple effect to try and make the world a little bit more intentional and not to prioritize and to value busyness and hustling quite so much. Because you're right, urgent and busy or urgent and important, it might not, it's probably not my urgent or important. It might be theirs, but there needs to be an awareness that just because it's important and urgent for you, it isn't for everybody. So it's trying
Yeah.
to remind people of that gently.
Yeah, I try and make it as clear as possible, but I realize I haven't done a very good job. A lot of the people who are close friends and family know exactly how to get in touch with you. They know the hierarchy. They know send me an email, I'll get back to it in a week, 3 to 4 days usually. If you send me a WhatsApp, it'll be 2 days. If you need something done, text me or call me
Yeah,
because those come straight through. They get through all of the stuff that blocks all of the focus modes that switch on automatically at certain times. Everything else gets bulk worked on.
yeah.
And as I say, I now have an email autoresponder as well, and that you probably saw it
I saw
while
it
inbound stuff.
today.
Yeah. It just made me realize, you know what, actually I do need to be intentional because I did actually have someone contact me while I was away on holiday, and it was a big thing that I didn't respond. And I realized I didn't actually tell anyone that I was away on holiday that in my wider network. Everyone who works with me directly knew,
Yeah,
but there were people who were getting very stressed about it. And I mean, that's okay. I should have been more upfront about it.
yeah,
But as long as we set those boundaries in place, that kind of gives other people the permission to set those boundaries as well.
yeah.
And I think everyone, to a certain degree, respects a boundary firmly held.
Yeah, and it resolves or it prevents conflict later down the line. I've spent 20 years working with teams, and what I always do at the start of any teamwork, and when I go out and do so this type of work I do in the networking events I do with teams as well. And at the start of all of the sessions, I do contracting. What are you wanting from this session? Great, this is what I want from this session. This is what we're going to work towards. And then if anybody doesn't do that, we can go back to, okay, so this is what we agreed, what's going wrong, what's not working for us. And so that's sort of what I do with my email responses. Thanks for your email. This is how I work. And then it means that it's basically because I'm conflict averse. So if I set it all up front, it avoids the conflict further down the line. Not always, but it helps to.
No, I think that should be the default. It should be the default for everyone because the idea with any relationship, any initial relationship, is to get to the point where you can work out whether it is worth continuing a conversation or a long-term friendship or whatever as quickly as possible in some ways. It's going, okay, I don't want to waste my time or indeed your time.
Yeah.
If this is a business relationship that isn't going to work, or if it isn't, or even a personal relationship, if it's not going to work, I'd rather know sooner.
Yeah.
And that means we may need to be more upfront. And that kind of also feeds in with being a little less desperate to make everyone love what we do. Sometimes we just need to accept that, you know what? That person that came to my session, they weren't they weren't the right person. I wasn't the right person for them because the energy I bring in my sessions wasn't the energy they need.
Yeah.
But they will find I'll signpost them to someone else, and do my best to help them find someone who can deliver what they need. But it's just being okay with not being that person. If you
Yeah.
want a forest school leader that will respond to text messages at 11 o'clock at night, I'm not your person.
Yeah. It is. And I think that if well, like me, I've worked for other people for a very long time. Um, and then it's not the easy option to do it on your own because you've got so much to do. I was almost forced to work with people that I didn't necessarily want to work with when I was employed. I refuse to do that now that I have my own say. So it's important to me that I work with people that actually make me happy and make me enjoy what I'm doing. It's hard enough as it is to run your own business without then having to be around more people that make it less enjoyable.
Definitely. So, where are things going next? What's your next kind of where you're looking to build or grow, or what's your goals for what you do
This is
near
where I need to put
future?
my own boundaries in place, Bracken, because I have lots of ideas. And actually, I'm incredibly lucky because I have lots of opportunities that come to me, and I have to get better at saying no because I can't do all of the things. So
Yeah.
you met Karen when we were at the Nature
Yeah.
Therapy Conference. So Karen is one of my ambassadors. She runs my events for me in North Wales, and I've got somebody who does the same for me in Cambridge. So it's a little bit like a franchise model, very low key. Um, and so allowing other people to come on board as ambassadors, basically because I want everyone to have access to the sort of space that we create at Elevate Networking. Um, so that's one of my ever ever expanding areas. I'm walking along the River Thames with Professor Jonathan Passmore in our Source to Sea adventure. I think there's about 25 walks that we're doing. It's broken down into roughly 8 to 10 miles each section. And we invite people along to have some free outdoor coaching with us to just raise awareness of the impacts of coaching outdoors. So that started in January, just gone, and it's probably it'd be another 12 months or so that we're doing that. So if anybody wants to join us on any of the walks, they are very welcome to meet Jonathan or experience some outdoor coaching or just be part of the journey. We're creating a really lovely community, actually. There's lots of people coming along quite frequently. Um, and I'm doing more work with in businesses as well to try and bring the idea that not all of us do our best work sitting indoors at a computer all day. Maybe we could be more creative and have less conflict if we stepped outside and walked and encouraged our brains to be at one with nature, to be a bit more creative rather than staring at a spreadsheet. So those, and there's just lots of other collaborations that are in the pipeline to work with other amazing people in the outdoor coaching space. I follow the joy, Bracken, so I have an idea of where I want to get to, but when things happen, like the Nature Therapy Conference, and I get invited to do things like that, if it feels right and the values are aligned, then I get involved.
So find more people and reach more people. That's the broad goal, broad brushstroke goals,
Yeah,
and it's yeah, as you say, just
yeah,
follow through. I'm sure it's going to work out quite well because say I was enthused by it, and I think it's the right time, and I think people are realizing this disconnect and need to connect and build better relationships, nature, and otherwise.
Yeah. And it's just simple, isn't it? It's actually stripping back everything that we've been told we need and realizing that it was there all along.
Yeah, it doesn't need to be any more complicated.
No.
Life's complicated enough, especially as a 50 role business owner. It's
Yes, it is.
anyway, fantastic. Thank you so much. So as we wind up, where would people, if they are interested in, say, becoming an ambassador, getting out on one of your networks, or just finding out more about what you do, where are we sending people? I'll make sure there's all the links in the description and stuff as well.
Thank you. I'm most active on LinkedIn, just under my name, Ellie Lloyd-Jones. That's where you'll find most of my um, updates. I am on Instagram under Elevate with Ellie, and we've got Elevate Networking as well, both on Instagram. And then my website, elevatewithellie.co.uk, has got it's the big container where you can sign up to my website. Sign up to my newsletter, have a look through the source to see what support I give for coaches, or all of that networking and everything.
Before we finish, if you kind of had to sum it all up, what is one piece of advice you'd give to a new small business owner? What's the most valuable thing to take away?
Um, that people are nice and kind and generous and are willing to give you help and support, especially those who are a little bit further down the self-employed journey. None of us get to where we are without a leg up, without just an introduction, a kind word, um, some support. So yeah, just trust in people and ask. People want to help because we all know how hard it is.
Yeah, there's a lot of us who want to pay it forward and keep
100%.
the positive cycle going.
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much, Ellie.
Oh, thank you, Bracken.
Genuine
It's been a
pleasure having you
pleasure.
on here.